Okay, 7:33, I call the meeting to order. Thank you, everybody, for their patience. Our exec session ran a little bit over, so thank you for the grace of starting a little bit late this evening. Welcome to the first board meeting of the 24-25 school year. I hope everybody's been enjoying their summer. And with that, roll call, Ms. Widener.
Dr. Campley?
Here.
Mr. Fountain?
Here.
Mr. Keenan?
Here.
Mr. Liggett?
Here.
Mr. McKinney?
Here.
Dr. Sadler? Mr. Saylor? Dr. Weston?
Here.
Ms. White?
Here. And I ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of reflection.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alrighty, and so to kick off the school year, I will start by reading the Perkiomen Valley mission statement. The mission of the Perkiomen Valley School District is to cultivate an inclusive community of learners empowered to grow intellectually, socially, and emotionally. 1.06, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
I see a motion, is there a second? Second. Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Comments on any topic? 1.07. Unfortunately, everyone is still on summer vacation. I don't see anyone in the audience able to comment, or if we're on our own. We're going to move to section 2, reports and presentations. Student liaison report. We do not yet have our students with us. 2.02. It's president's report. I have nothing other than the welcome back. 2.03, superintendent's report, Dr. Russell.
Thank you, Ms. White. I have just a few items this evening. I want to also echo the welcome back. This first meeting in August feels like the start of the school year. We have students on campus beginning today for heat acclimation with our football as part of our football team and program, and we also have marching band students here today. So we're gearing up. A lot of professional learning also commences beginning this week through August until the first day of school for our staff, August 21st. So there's lots that's starting to happen on campus. So I have just a couple of topics I want to touch upon for the board and the public, and you can see them there. So let's dive right in. We received the new anatomage table that was graciously and generously donated to a great extent by our PV Education Foundation. And pictured here at the right, you see Dr. Fitzhenry, who is the biology teacher, and she will host the anatomage table. And then you see the executive director of our foundation, Mrs. Kristen Craven. And this is really just, I can't say enough about how excited we are to have this very sophisticated device and learning tool resource that not many high schools have in our area that we're aware of. So we're really excited about how we change some of the teaching and learning experiences through this table. And as we actually dive in and get to know it better, I know that Mrs. Craven is scheduling an opportunity to showcase the table, to recognize it, sort of have a ribbon cutting ceremony, if you will, a little bit later this fall. So we'll give you more of a glimpse at how this table operates and supports learning on the part of our students. But a huge thank you to our foundation for this offering. And you could see the check there. It was a large amount of money, well over $100,000. This is the table in the room upstairs. I stopped up today to see it. I didn't touch it, but I wanted to. I would love to dive in and give it a go, but I need to have a lesson or two. But at any rate, this is how it appears in the classroom upstairs. And honestly, alone, we can do so little. Together, we can do so much. These partnerships, and we'll continue to emphasize those as we progress through the year, are powerful and really thankful. So let's talk a little bit about the Southeast Youth Development Center. That actually opened up for students in mid-July, and 2 students were assigned to the center to begin. So there's a soft start at SE YDC, as they are continuing some construction internally. They're trying to expand the learning spaces, and until they get those learning spaces to where they need them to be and they have the surface area that they want for the maximum number, which they predict or project will be 40, not 48, as we had talked about originally, but 40 students, there will just be a few students added on a regular basis as they progress towards that maximum number. So they're acclimating students, they're acclimating staff, and they're also finishing up the learning spaces that they're constructing. So there's some general information about the facility right now. Dr. Weston.
How many students are there now?
There were 2 weeks ago, but I actually don't know if they added some last week as well. I can confirm that for you, but very few at this point.
Okay. and
They
how-
added 2 at a time, and that was their plan, just to go slow. They called it a soft start.
Yeah, no, you don't want to be overwhelmed, but at the same time, 2 people you can't really get away from each other.
Right.
How many staff are there?
I don't know. I know that the IU was progressing in securing all of the teachers they wanted, but they didn't have every position filled. So I did plan to make a stop up there either this week or next. I'll do that, and I'll follow up with the board with an update as to how many students are there and what the staffing situation is for the IU. There also was a bit of a hiccup. As you can see, they're awaiting Verizon and internet infrastructure to be able to actually commence virtual learning. They can't do it right now. So that wasn't coming in. Remember, they were supposed to start school August 1st and run through June 30. And they've postponed that and made sure that they can accumulate the minimum number of required hours. But they had to postpone the start because they can't get the students online yet. So they're working through some glitches. I'll provide the board an update. I do plan to stop up there either this week or next and visit and meet the students and meet some of the staff and see how things are going. I'll report back. So let's talk a little bit about enrollments and staffing. We were really following this very closely in the spring. We track it very carefully in the summer. Since we haven't met in July, I wanted to come back to it. I appreciate the support of the board to take that one position that we hadn't allocated by the end of the year to a kindergarten position at South Elementary. Each of our elementary schools has 4 full-day kindergarten classes. And you'll see, if you're comparing enrollment report to this little chart down here that's incorporated into the slides that Mr. Mitchell has put together or contributed to, I have a note there. The chart to the right includes pending registrations. Anybody in the system, we're beginning to prepare for them and really watching very carefully the numbers and getting that 4th classroom at South set up. But numbers are looking pretty good across the buildings. In terms of, if I say pretty good, I'm really referencing those class size recommendations per policy 126. We're within those recommended ranges at this point. Here you see just updated enrollments. In the charts and the format that I had been using, we're going to shift, we're going to transition to what you see on the board agenda typically. That's prepared by Ms. Widener and our registrar and our building assistants who really check these numbers to make sure that they are accurate. In terms of staffing, we are still filling teaching positions as well as paraprofessional and other support positions. All administrative positions have now been filled. So some important dates. We're getting excited. The first day of school is rapidly approaching, and teachers, all staff, report on August 21st. That's opening day, and that's exciting. So our welcome back letter went out today to all of our staff, really to get them in the mode and excited for the first day of school. And then there's an in-service day. We have some of our orientations early this year. So we have kindergarten on the 19th, and we have 6th grade on the 22nd. And then our students are welcome back across the board, K-12, on August 26th. And then you'll see some other important dates there, just as a reference. But very excited about the first day of school. It's coming quickly.
So can I just ask, kindergarten orientation rather, will that happen collectively with all of the schools combined or per building?
Per building.
Okay, great.
And that ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we'll move on to the solicitor's report, 2.04, Mr. Subers.
I have no report, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Subers. 2.05, Board and District Committee reports. Dr. Russell, can you just speak a little bit about how committees will be executed going forward this school year? And then just, obviously, since we have dates, if everyone can just take note of them.
Yes, thank you. So at the end of the year, if you recall, the board opted to maintain that Education Committee of the Whole, but move the meeting out of the work session because it was really extending the length of the meeting. So where we have landed with scheduling those meetings is that they will be scheduled on the evening, Thursday evening after the business meeting. And then that gives us time to prepare for the upcoming work session. So you'll see education committees of the whole at 7 o'clock on the Thursday after the business meeting each month. Prior to that, from 6 to 7, we have scheduled the wellness committee. Last year, wellness occurred in the afternoon, and for some that was really inconvenient. So we've decided to try and be efficient and stack these two committee meetings and offer wellness in the evening to be more accommodating to people. And most of our committee meetings now also offer live streaming or in some cases a Zoom link. So we really do try and engage individuals in the ways that work for them. Safety and operations will be a standalone meeting, and that will occur on the following Thursday, the week after the business meeting. So you'll see those dates, and it's scheduled for 6 o'clock on that Thursday evening. Finance Committee of the Whole will remain in the work session as part of the work session meeting. That finance update will really be the Finance Committee of the Whole agenda. Whereas with education, we're going to shift back to an education update as we had before that Education Committee of the Whole. So if I haven't totally confused you, know that we're going to try and do our very best to summarize what's happening in education each work session, but keep it very streamlined, comprehensive yet succinct, whereas Finance Committee of the Whole meetings will continue to occur in the ways that they did.
Sorry I didn't think of this sooner. The policy meetings being before
Right.
the work
Business.
session or the business session meeting, what happens if there's an exec session? Will it be at the end of the meeting or?
That's what, right,
Curious how you
yeah,
were gonna do
that's
that.
a really good question, and we were trying to think about, again, a way to be efficient and respectful of individuals' time in the evening. And the suggestion, as we conversed about it, was to move policy to before business, because we didn't really have many exec sessions before the business meeting last year. They're often before the work session. If they do, the theory of action would be that the business meetings are fairly short, and so we would have that policy committee meeting afterwards. The other question.
The exec session after.
The exec session, I'm sorry, thank you. The other question that's come up connected to policy committee is, what if we don't get through the whole agenda? Or what if we're still talking about a topic that's part of the policy committee agenda? And where Ms. White and I have landed is section 9 of the board agenda, where conversations could continue on the part of the board in public, or to the next month's meeting and agenda. So we'll play that by ear, but opportunities to continue conversations if necessary, okay? So policy committee has also shifted, again, with the idea that we're trying to be efficient and respectful of individuals' time. You'll see some other committees here. Negotiations may emerge if early bird conversations are something the board decides to embark upon. Otherwise, there is not a group that we are working with this year. And assessment committees a couple of times in the fall, and Mr. Mitchell is working on zeroing in on some dates. I will schedule community engagement forums again, and board members have participated in those. Thinking again about maybe 2 in the morning, 2 in the evening. We had some good attendance in the morning meeting that was held. It seems maybe schedules are a little bit more conducive to that these days, and evenings are pretty busy for our families. So we'll see if we can't find a sweet spot there and strike the right balance. I don't know that we will need the ad hoc committee for the Southeast Youth Development Center. I would request we leave it on there just to see how the year progresses and whether or not there are conversations that need to happen with those representatives that originally expressed the interest. The Special Ed Parent Advisory Council is a group that Dr. Boyd and I started. This is a great opportunity for me to introduce Mrs. Jonah Ducci formally as now our Director of Special Ed. She was announced earlier, but she's in the role. And she's here at board meetings representing our special ed department, so welcome, Joan. And Joan and I will work on these conversations and organizing those and when they commence this year.
So the only other thing that I would add, Dr. Russell, is I know just in terms of mapping out the year, I mean, we're already here in August, so we'll be in December before we know it seems. To have the dates mapped out, policy, obviously will happen before the, the business meeting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
So those dates are sort of established, but specifically for the education, anything that has a TBD or just a September date, if we could plug in the other dates, at least for the 6-month outlook, that would, I think, be really helpful just for the public to kind of map their days out.
Yes, we will do that. We were kind of waiting to have the conversation tonight.
Yep.
And Ms. Widener has to advertise, but yes, we'll do that and we'll have those in place before the next meeting.
Thank you, that's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yep. Thank you.
And Miss Weiner, you'll do those beautiful, lovely, like, ditching things on our calendars?
Yeah. Placeholders for all. And so
You're-
then everybody would get for, obviously, for
You're the
example,
best.
the education committee of the whole meeting. The plan of action there is that it's open to all board members, not restricted to just 4, but you don't have to attend.
That's right.
If you should choose not to.
Right. Right, very good.
All right.
And then similarly for the policy meeting, that would be happening beforehand because we would have assigned,
It is actually not a policy meeting of the whole, so that will still be applicable.
that's my point.
Well, it's the opposite for education.
Yeah.
So for education, everybody is welcome to join. It's an education committee of the whole. For policy, it will be the representatives as indicated, and then everyone else on the board that's not on policy committee will then, we can commence if there is something to pick up in section 9. That's correct.
Thank you.
But we can still come as and act as a community member.
All of that still applies if
Okay.
you're not on any particular committee. That's correct.
Gotcha, okay.
But there's no deliberation. Are there any other comments or questions about committees or dates or restructuring of said items? Fabulous. Section 4, Dr. Campley, Education.
And here,
Oh, I'm so sorry.
oh, the consent agenda.
I miss it every single time. Okay, I'm so sorry. Consent agenda, Section 3. Do I have a motion to approve
Motion.
the okay.
We'd still need to
Consent
vote
agenda
that.
as presented? A motion, is there a second? A motion and a second? All
Point
in
of
favor?
order,
I'm sorry?
point of order.
Hmm?
We don't have, the consent agenda still needs to be built.
The consent agenda will still need to be built, so we're not voting on it, we're just motioning to
You're
approve
not
it
approving, you're approving the.
as presented,
for
the way
next
that it
week.
is,
Right.
right, so far. Right,
We'll continue to add to it.
thank you, Bob. No, it's-
Motion again?
We're good, yeah.
Motioning it again. You want to second it again?
That's the whole point, is that as presented, is there anything you want taken off of consent?
No, it's good.
Okay, you're good.
So I don't need to motion it again?
Bob doesn't like when you break the rules. He gets him very,
For the love
very
of God.
upset.
You're not allowed to second it.
You know what, though? Next week, you're on tap to do all of that, and Wade, you too, okay? Okay, we're gonna move on, yeah? Education, Section 4, Dr. Campley.
Okay. I had in my head that I was coming next week on Thursday already, but apparently we're going to do it tonight. So, Barb, would you like, or Dr. Russell, would you like to do the education update since we don't have Mr. Mitchell this week?
Yeah, so, thank you, Dr. Campley. So we won't have an Education Committee of the Whole meeting this month. We rarely have committee meetings in August. We typically start them in September. But we would like to continue or go back to those education updates that we provided before we had moved the Education Committee of the Whole into the work session. so that we keep the board, all board members, and our public up to date with some of the things happening in education. Again, though, streamlined, it's a summary. It's not that education committee of the whole agenda. That will occur on that Thursday after the business meeting. All right, so for tonight, just a couple of things that we thought we would point out to the board. Mr. Mitchell and I, full day kindergarten, we have a couple of curriculum guides that have been sitting for 30 days or more now, and we will ask for your approval of those, as well as just want to touch point about the middle school schedule. There's been a lot of work done there. So I mentioned a little bit already about kindergarten numbers. These numbers incorporate those students that are pending in the system that we're planning to welcome as we prepare to start the school year. Class sizes are looking to be within that recommended range of Policy 126. We are still waiting on one more kindergarten teacher at South, and finalizing hopefully this week the interview process, and hope to have a recommended candidate by week's end, but we'll see. A couple of other things you'll see in some pictures here. Our classrooms are being put together with some new furniture and some new supplies, and teachers participated really enthusiastically in responsive classroom, and they took a lot away from some of the feedback that we received. They're looking forward to orientation. Welcome letters go out after schedules were open today, so students at the elementary level learned who their teacher is going to be for the upcoming school year today. Parent view opened at 12 o'clock. There are teacher letters that follow for all of our elementary students. Tomorrow at 12 o'clock, middle school schedules will open. Wednesday at 12 o'clock, high school schedules will be available. And our website has a new page really to inform individuals, our parent community, and others interested in our full-day kindergarten program and some of the things we're offering. So here's an example of a classroom from out at Schwenksville. The tables and the supply holders at the center of the tables, colorful rugs, a nice colorful appearance. You see here, this is a sensory table where there can be some different activities structured in that table for our students, considered a best practice. A reading area for students, so classroom libraries were developed for each of our new classrooms and kindergarten teachers. So there was, again, some new books and resources provided to our teachers across the board as we prepare to host students for a full day this year, and then zeroing in on a particular table and some of the other supplies. So very exciting. Teachers are very excited. So this is a change process we've moved through that teachers have really they've embraced it. They're excited about it. They're really invested in looking forward to having students for a full day. This is just a screenshot of the website. If you click on the link, you can get to the website and access more information about full-day kindergarten, the programming, and what right now the schedule is set to be for this year. It's a new program, so I'm sure we will progress monitor and fine-tune as needed. However, we feel ready to go and really excited about the opportunity with students. Transitioning curriculum guides. These guides have been posted and available to you. Engineering design, statistics, business applications. These are 3 high school elective courses. We are moving away from Project Lead the Way towards our own engineering coursework. So this engineering design course is one that's been developed by our team. It is not a Project Lead the Way course. And these curricula are ready for your approval this month. You'll see, if you've looked through them, some of the aspects of the curriculum writing process that end up comprising curriculum documents, and how these guide teachers as they instruct our students and the intended learning outcomes, for our students. And lastly, the middle school schedule. So we have our principal team really working diligently on, in particular, that intervention and enrichment period. They've developed a consistent purpose statement, and they continue with having discussions with their staff and planning for conversations around assessment data, and then what students need during that I&E period and what will be provided. They anticipate a soft start and expanding that, growing it, again, progress monitoring, evaluating, and then modifying as we need to and ultimately sustaining this INE period in a way that serves students and supports their academic growth, their behavioral growth, each of those areas that we really focus on. We're working on communication on a broader scale, maybe a set of FAQs for our parents, because this is new for parents at the middle school. It's not new for parents at the elementary, but it is new for parents at the middle school, and we want to be respectful of that and help them to understand the experiences for their students as we approach this. So with that, an example of a schedule and what INE looks like in a sample schedule for each grade level. And these are scheduled at different periods during the day so we can maximize our resources. And what a sample schedule might look like, again, focus on mathematics, ELA, and then the character education or cell learning. Lastly, just a friendly reminder in the slides that Education Committee of the Whole will meet on that Thursday evening following the business meeting. Ms. Widener will send board members the dates. We will post them in the table before next week, and the Wellness Committee will come right before it. And with that, that ends the education update. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Russell. 4.02 and 4.03 is the approval of curriculum guides and the approval of the 2024-2025 student handbooks. If there are no questions on either of those, we can move them both to consent. Okay, we'll put them both on consent. 4.04 and 4.05 are the approval of the MCIU Title I Services Agreement and the approval to participate in the MCIU Title III Consortium. If there are no questions on either of those, we can move both of those to consent. Okay, we can move both 4.04 and 4.05 to consent. 4.06 is the approval of the MCCC Early College Program Agreement for dual enrollment. If there are no questions, that can be moved to consent. Okay, we can move that to consent. 4.07 is the approval of grant for the Southeast Youth Development Center. Any questions? If not, we can move it to consent. We can move that to consent. And the last one here is 4.08, which is an approval of graduation requirements for the Southeast Youth Development Center. If there are no questions, that one can also be moved to consent. Seeing none, we can move that to consent. And 4.09 is the enrollment report, which we briefly went over. So if there are no questions, that ends my section.
Great job with education section. Dr. Campley, thank you. Dr. Weston, section 5 business.
Thank you, Ms. White. Item 5.01, Finance Committee of the Whole presentation. Mr. Weaver, may we have your presentation?
Okay, good evening, everybody. Sorry, Mr. McKinney, this is going to go real fast. Mr. Fabrizio, come on up. So Dr. Russell, if you would hit again. All right, so I'll have Mr. Fabrizio explain this Gantt chart here. I just like to say that I've been involved in school districts for this is my 31st year. And because of the workmanship that we've had with our school board, we've actually done some significant work this year. And we're coming forward with getting that work done and asking for a lot of ratifications due to the generosity that you provided in us and professionalism. I'd also like to give kudos to Mr. Fabrizio to help guide many of these projects, including screaming and yelling at vendors to get jobs done on a timely basis. So I will turn it over to Mr. Fabrizio.
Good evening and welcome back. So I started using a Zoho product for tracking projects, which is pretty detailed, and go through and put all the projects, assign them, track progress, goals and dependencies and things like that. So that's just a simple overview of part of what I deal with every day. Do I have a clicker? Projects, so there's lots. District office, we're wrapping up the refresh. This is a shot of the kitchen, new flooring. That's a shot of part of my new office wall with that orange. It's called rust. That's the Benjamin Moore paint color. So district office refresh, we did all the ceiling tiles. We had a PICO grant. We obtained all the new fixtures at no cost. We did the painting. We're waiting on the paving until the fall, until we get all our equipment out of the back. The outside, we had some stucco issues, which you'll see later on for ratification. Those were addressed. The whole exterior of the building was painted, again, along with the interior. We upgraded all the baseboard heaters, a lot of the light switches, so we did a pretty good number on the building. It's looking good. Evergreen, this was the most disgusting floor I've ever seen underneath. It was like a soup mixture. It was gross. But the install process was pretty amazing. I have a video, it's not on here, but on the left they had a tape gun with blue double rolls of tapes, and they laid the lines out and they actually hand paint all this stuff. It was pretty amazing. They were very precise on their layout. The picture on the right is kind of like an overview of after the painting was done. So the floor looks great. We have some finishing touches to put on, and getting ready to turn it over. Yep.
Is that the finish of the floor? It's not, it's sealed that color?
It's like a rubber composite material.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
It
not
was-
real wood.
It was,
Bit of varnish,
yeah, it has a natural look to it. Go ahead. I'm so sorry. I just was
problem.
curious.
The comp gym, so we started sanding away on the floor. We took it 3 grit levels to bring it up. So it's right now the floor is totally stripped of everything. They've applied a couple coats of sealer, and we're waiting on the graphics to come in so they can start laying them down and striping it out. We're hoping to have that done by the 12th. So we're pushing along. Concession stand, I'm just waiting my final inspection. I have a call in to the third-party inspector, and we should be good to go. Here we're putting in the stainless steel storage cabinets in the back. And there's a heater for the wintertime controlled by a smart thermostat. We have a refrigerator in there, and we ordered a chest freezer so they can store like ice cream sandwiches and hamburgers and whatnot in there. And then there's a 12-foot long stainless steel table that's not in there with outlets all on the back. And then we have roll-up doors. The card access is coming along well, so it's a nice addition.
And the card access will be for not only the concession, but also for the gate?
So we have the runner's gate, we call it, the slide gate, the vehicle gate to come in. We have it on the 2 restrooms, the grounds room, and then the concession stand area.
And do you have a completion date for the card access?
They started it. I'm thinking within the next 2 weeks it should be done.
Okay, and has the turnover date and access coordination happened with the folks that need to access that after the card access? I know that currently boosters, for example, and athletics, for another example, use a key. So have they been kind of kept in the loop in terms of when the turnover of the access will go to the card, and then how will they be granted that?
Sure, I'll have to work with Bob Feldy and HR to get a list of people who will need access to that, and then we can create custom access levels for them to gain access when they need to get in.
Okay.
So it'll be coordinated before we.
Okay, because
Or
I know
it
the access
starts.
that's ongoing, so I mean, I'm assuming it'll be like one day it's done and now you move to that system. So I guess my only concern is, and maybe proactively, I know the meeting is obviously a public conversation about it, but maybe just a little memo can go out to the booster clubs in addition to employees of the district, just so they understand that, hey, our date is X, and please be on the lookout for. I think there's some anxiety around needing to get into the field, and then all of a sudden there's no lock and no key anymore.
Yeah, no, that'll be coordinated. We
I
don't want to lock
appreciate
anybody
that.
out.
Yep, just to say it out loud. I appreciate that.
Okay, next slide, please. Paving, we've started paving. So we just wrapped up the high school, the teacher lot. We stripped it down, milled out a bunch of bad spots and repaved it, restriped it, so that's looking pretty good. I swung by Saturday after that torrential downpour we had, and it looks good. It's shedding water how it should, and it's holding up. So we've started Evergreen. We milled that out. They'll be paving that pretty soon. And Skip Back, we've started on the playground in the back with the water inlets, replacing those that are pretty bad, and then some of the curbing around the back. and then we'll move on to the other schools before they start up. Any questions on that?
Just on the summer projects update sheet, your status indicators, closed, I'm assuming means finished, and open
Yeah,
means...
I have to find how to tweet that instead of saying close, like complete it. Yeah,
Like work ticket closed is
Yeah.
really what it means, right?
yeah, it's finished.
So the
and
only, go
open
ahead.
means in progress?
Yes.
Thanks.
So Mr. Fabrizio, the only thing that I don't see noted is the campus drive. Can you give the Aqua PA update with that?
Yeah, so these guys they have a very fluid schedule. So they just texted me about an hour ago that they'll be milling tomorrow. So in the rain, which is good because it'll keep the dust down and they can do that in the rain. That completion will take about 5 days. This week is kind of dicey with the weather. We're supposed to get some pretty heavy rains and they cannot pave when it's raining. So once the milling is done, about 2 days, I'm thinking they're going to start paving the following week.
So next week they'll start paving?
Yeah.
Okay. And then again, with communication to athletics and boosters, have they been made aware of it?
Yes, I sent an email out today to Bob Feldy, high school principal here, and Dave Overholzer,
Okay,
So-
great. Just so everybody's on the
Yep.
same page. Thank you.
and they can push that out to their people.
Thank you.
So, any other questions?
Okay, one of the other things is I'd like to also thank Mr. Felty and Dave Overholzer and everybody involved with these major groups that go along. They've been working with Joe and I all summer long, and they've been very accommodating as we're trying to make our campus better. So here is a listing of the ratifications, again, that we talked about in June that we set up. We went about our business throughout June and into July, and so now we need ratifications of the contracts associated with these items. 5.03 is the district stucco repairs that Mr. Fabrizio mentioned. That is a change. Remember, we actually approved CertaPro for the painting on the inside, and then we're coming back now for the stucco, and that is a CoStar's bid. 5.04 is a makeup RTU unit through MSC, through at Middle School East. It's through Tri-State. We ran 3 bids, and the good thing about this one is it is being paid for by National School Lunch Funds. We actually ran it up the chain for the federal government to make sure that we could charge this specific item to the cafeteria area, and they agreed with us. So this money will be coming out of the food service fund. 5.05 District Office Fire Alarm System. This is, again, another ratification on CoStars. This is one of the group of the very large items that we had been talking about for district-wide fire alarm system replacements. So getting this done while nobody is in the building was very important for us. So we move forward with that, and it's a ratification request. And again, it's through CoStars. It'll be done by CM3. Obviously, they know our district very well. 5.06 is district-wide painting. This is to PR painting at multiple buildings through CoStars, $45,170. 5.07, the competition gym at the high school, the Miller Sports. This is a change order. The original request that was approved by the school board was not to exceed $50,000. The original stripping was $44,140. For us to get the proper placement of the new logo onto the gym floor, it actually cost a little bit more than what we anticipated. The change order is actually for about $6,000 because you take the difference of the $50,000 that was originally approved minus the actual first invoice for the stripping of $44,140. That delta there is deducted from that $11,410 overall cost. So it's actually a $6,000 change order that we're requesting. And 5.08 is for the refurb at Middle School East cafeteria floor. Again, this is one of these things that in talking with Mr. Fabrizio and the freedom that we enjoyed and we had, we decided that we would like to get that job completed as well at Middle School East. And we moved forward with Franklin Flooring, a tried and true vendor for the school district at a cost not to exceed $31,270. And that work is underway.
So with regards to the list here for the ratifications, I think everything is either underway or complete, with the exception of 5.08. Do you have a date for the beginning of 5.08?
This Friday.
Thank you.
Again, any questions on that listing, we appreciate, and we're very thankful for the teamwork that we've been provided by the school board. And again, couldn't have gotten it done without Mr. Fabrizio and his work ethic. So kudos to him. Okay, moving on to a little bit of an easier topic, the state budget. So all of our professional organizations were saying that it would take forever for this year's budget to be done, and in the blink of an eye, it was approved. So it was approved at nighttime on July 11th. It was signed, and it was all moved forward. The end result, because of our conservative nature, is we hedged some of our bet, and our two biggest subsidies there, basic instructional subsidy and special education subsidy, we did receive additional funding for that. Now remember, we had a conservative guesstimate in there, so that ate into some of that overall change, but we're very thankful for the additional monies that we did receive. The biggest item that is not on there is the adequacy funding that was part of Governor Shapiro's initial proposal in February. That was the big ticket item for us. And unfortunately, the adequacy funding was one of those late night deals, I think, to get the budget done. They just kind of passed it and proved it and said, we'll take care of the adequacy funding for other school districts later on. So unfortunately for us, for PV personally, that was dropped. So we lost out on the big nugget that we were hoping for, but understanding ahead of the time that the political situation that was going to have. It was only 11 days, so that's a positive, late. That's a positive. And another item is $106,000 in refunding of cyber charter based upon previous years. This is not what Representative Cerisi was driving hard to get. This was, however, some sort of a compromise that we are not privileged to understand in the background, and I'm hopeful that Mr. Cerisi and his group continue to emphasize the fact that we need standard figures to be charged and not random figures based upon a 363, but a solid figure that would really drive home millions of dollars of savings throughout the Commonwealth. One of the other things for cyber charter schools is they are now finally required to have a yearly audit. So up until this point in time, although it was taxpayer money going there, they did not have to have a yearly audit. Now they officially do, which is a positive from a transparency perspective. Again, we'll take the SB and the special education numbers. That's a positive. Remember, these aren't specific to anything, and because of the way that these subsidies come in, they simply go into, and our philosophy has been not to match them up to any kind of budgeted expenditure, because guess what? We didn't know we were going to get those. So when we submitted the budget, we didn't have anything to match it to. It simply goes into our pockets to be spent as we seem to be able to do. And then the adequacy funding hopefully will come around. It's a unique idea, and hopefully in the future there can be benefit from that specific for Perkiomen Valley School District. Any questions on the state budget? Okay, thank you. A couple of other things just to note. We've been working with Mrs. Hurd, and I met with individuals from the Skip Back Implant and Family Dentistry, and you will notice that there is a motion to approve a sponsorship, a one-year sponsorship for $5,000. And that is good. That means that having approval of this will mean 2 of our 3 possible slots have been sold at this point in time. This is a one-year deal, and we're hopeful that we can extend it into a multi-year deal once we get in and they can see some return on their investment, and we can see our return on our investment as well. And we are looking at a 3rd possible sponsor at this point in time, but that's in the early stages. I didn't feel comfortable bringing that forward. So hopefully by the time September rolls around, we'll have that 3rd slot sold as well, and then our scoreboard will be complete from a sponsorship perspective. We are recommending movement of items 5.02 through 5.09 to be approved. Any particular questions from the school board on those? Great. Okay, thank you so much. One other item we do have tonight, Evolve Technology. So we've been tracking the ability for us to do weapons detections based upon some field trips that we took to North Penn. We've been keeping up to date with these, the way that these units work. We've brought in to the group Mr. Felty, Mr. Fabrizio, Mr. Ganesh, and also even someone like Mr. Overholzer in regards to how they move their people in and out of the stadium, just to make sure that they are aware that moving forward with this purchase, this will help us to identify and solidify some changes. It's a paradigm shift for us on focusing in on the way that people go into our Keenan Stadium. Keep in mind that this technology is based upon finding through AI and MRI resonance, I think I'm saying that right, guns and pipe bombs. They are very clear. The group is very clear that it is not for all weapons discovery. So this is not specifically for knives. It may detect them, but they are very clear in saying they will not guarantee that. Guns and pipe bombs, thumbs up. That's essentially what it will do. And it will also look for other things, but no guarantee on that. So if you turn the next slide, what we're looking at, the team has gone through several different versions. There is a double shoot and there are single shoots. Obviously the double shoot is a little bit more, but it does not break apart. So for flexibility purposes, in conversations with Chief Miller and Mr. Fabrizio, we felt that it was more opportune for us to buy two singles. And if we need a double shoot, we can put them together. And if we want to break them apart and move them to different entrances, because it's both outside and inside influence that we can do that. The double shoot, the problem with the double shoot, it has one main standard in the middle and it has two cameras coming out that help with the discovery. That can't be broken apart. If we do the two singles, the cameras go with the singles. So we can put them together, get a double shoot, or we can put them, keep them apart as singles. It is a little bit more expensive for the singles. It's $138,388 at the current invoice that we have. And we'd like a strong consideration for the school board to seriously consider this. It's not budgeted at this point in time. So approval would come through unassigned fund balance uses, reserves at this time. We're open for questions. It's not on the agenda for approval tonight, so we have some time to talk about it. But it is one of those key factors that we began in May. We followed through in June. We've tracked it in the summer, and we're coming forward now to present our results and what our recommendations are.
So I'd like to open it up for questions and also just discussion with regards to whether or not we should move forward with approval of the ask. My question to you, Mr. Weaver, is what you would envision the timeline to be with approval.
So we do have the invoice. Approval for next Monday night, we would get a PO ready and send it out. They have told us within 2 to 3 weeks the equipment will be here.
Okay, so it's not something that would have like a 12-week lead time. No. It would be something that you would want to implement for the beginning of the school year.
That is correct.
Okay, and I guess I'll open up the dialogue as to why does operations, you, Mr. Weaver, and then also Chief Miller, feel like this is a better avenue than utilizing other technology that we already have on hand?
So one of the things is its ability to allow a large flow to go through and be checked all at once. It is similar technology that is in major professional venues. And so those are high mobility, high intense areas of flow that the system will check for, and it will assist us in a much faster way than having wands, for instance. If we have people come in and we wand everybody, that will take a long time. In this particular case, we can push through 1,500 people in about 15 minutes. That's about our average size on any given night for a standard football game, soccer game, or whatever. Obviously, graduation is heavy, so we could have those two. It would take a little bit more time. And also with our understanding of how this works, we might even be able to reach out to our partners at North Penn, perhaps borrow those for high volume events as well.
Does anyone have any comments, questions? I think my concern is really that we own wands, and I feel as though this is not a small amount of money. I appreciate the security that would be added, but I'm wondering if there is a way to, to implement protocol, like, for example, clear bags, like stadiums are requesting that people don't show up with bags, that the bag be clear, be a certain size, maybe not wanding every single person, maybe doing a random check, that type of thing. I feel as though optically we can tighten up. I feel like we were so loose that there's a lot of room between what was and then this. And so I'm just wondering if there should be, like a step with some other things, and then maybe this would be like a phase 2 down the pike sort of implementation. I just think that there's some other capital projects that have been on the burner for much longer than this. That's my point of view.
That's a fair look. Dr. Campley.
I have to be honest, I'm in the same vein of thought. I mean, if we're going to do this for, say, a football game, I mean, it needs to be done across the board. Like, why aren't we doing it coming into the building for just normal school day? I mean, you're opening up Pandora's box when there's a lot of things that could be done before we get to this level. I mean, we already spent all the money on having officers on site. I do think clear bags, you can't go to just going to the football stadium to see the Eagles practice on Thursday night. You had to go and take a clear bag. Now, granted, obviously they did have something like Evolve technology, but that's a very different situation. You're going to see the Eagles. But in addition to that, they had clear bags. I mean, I do think there is a level in between that we need to try first before $138,000 for 2 single chutes that we would then have to take down and move to transfer to the competition gym. And then you have to think, okay, well, that gym has basketball going on, but then we have another spot on campus that has something else. Well, which one gets the use of the technology? Which one do we deem we have a swimming meet going on at the same time? Which one do we deem more security is worthy of the additional security? I don't know. I think we need to take a hard look at some additional measures before we start talking $138,000, when there's other things we could be doing educationally for our students and proactively for our students. I don't know. Long-winded way of saying I agree
Mr.
with
Fountain.
Laura.
I think in answer to your question, as far as multiple locations, if you have the 2 single chutes, theoretically, you could have 2 events going on simultaneously with a single chute at each one. My question is more the idea of saying, okay, they can be broken down. How easy and how quick can you break them down? Let's say they're in the stadium, but we have another event the next day in the building. How quickly can those be broken down and moved and reestablished?
So what we saw at North Penn was fairly easy to maneuver. They are on wheels, so you can pick them up and move them. You can lock them in place. They are heavy, though, so we would need to maneuver them around. Not as in, 2,000 pounds, but they're heavy. Like, you would need a crew of people to move them. And to your point about, being able to do multiple events, we've actually discussed a little bit about that, because we have heavy events at East, we have heavy events at West. What's more important? Well, if we have 2, we can split them up. Again, that's the thinking. There is no doubt that Chief Miller is leading towards changes of procedures. We, as an administrative team and as a school board, have talked about, and we're putting in place ticket booths, for instance. So we are getting together with the idea that we have a single entrance where we're making people go through to observe and to look already. These machines will certainly assist and funneling those people through faster to be able to do that. However, on the back end, we still know we'll need eyes looking. We will need eyes looking at the tablet, and we'll need eyes in the back when somebody gets a hit. And by a hit, that just means it beeps. It beeps, and we can identify who that is. It's live screen on a computer pad in the back. That's all that comes with that as well. And then that person just gets pulled aside and then wanded. So it is a multi-layer approach when we allow people into, specifically into our stadium atmosphere. They can be broken down. We can use them on a daily basis if we so desire, when in student entrances, if that's what we like to do. We can also go straight clear plastics as well, to let people in. I'm not, saying that that's not the best way. I don't know if there is a best way. I think it's all a hands-on approach, and this gives us an asset that we currently don't have.
Does anyone else have any?
Yes,
Mr.
Mr.
McKinney?
Weaver, I like the idea of like a more secured internal environment inside the stadium, but I'm concerned outside the stadium. I mean, these incidents can still take place in the parking lot, outside the building. So it's kind of like there's an avoidance to this if you're a bad actor and you're really looking to cause havoc or mayhem. And I'm just thinking, how do we, if we're concerned about safety at our events, how do we tackle that aspect of it, that we look at the entirety of an event and how we can do it? Because again, a bad actor could avoid the system and then just, perpetrate whatever they wanted to do outside of the place. So, but I like the idea of, again, trying to come up with ways to secure our events.
So why don't we see if we can get together and get some summary of some information. Again, we have next week. That's fine, and we can postpone it as long as we're talking about it and have good dialogue. That's not a problem. I want to make the right and appropriate recommendation and decision that the board can agree with, so our community feels safe when they go to these events. We do know that there were some events that happened last year, not particularly here, and hence our antenna are up at this point in time as a possible way to address some of those issues.
So I guess, go ahead, Dr. Campley.
I was just gonna say, I know, I definitely can feel the fear that the community has given some of the incidents at other schools, last fall, for sure. My thought, again, and I think, Mr. McKinney, you hit the nail on the head with, a lot of times our fights that happen right outside the fence. They come right outside the fence, and that's where they're getting into their fights. But if there was a way to secure a grant to pay for this, and I know that there are some safety initiative grants, I'd be more inclined, because then it wouldn't be taking from education initiatives. So if there could be some research into seeing if there would be a grant that would pay for this, I think maybe that would be something to look into. I just don't see spending the money and again, taking away from educational initiatives when we've already put so much money recently into safety protocols. But that would be my thought, is to look into something like that.
Mr. McKinney?
Awesome, Mr. Weaver. Is there like any type of expiration date on those invoices, or so let's say we waited 6 months or a year, I'm assuming the cost may possibly go up.
It certainly may. They've been a great company to work with. They're out of Texas, and they sub the rights out to a local company called AES somewhere in Chester County. They've been great people to work with as well. And yeah, we'll have to wait and see and go back with them. But at the end of the day, I think a grant opportunity is an excellent idea. We do know that the state is ramping up. We'll have another opportunity this year. We're waiting for details to come back. So that might be the best way to go, to be honest with you.
So if I may, and I appreciate that at the last Operations Committee meeting, I think it was May.
Yeah.
That was prior to you going and seeing them in person.
Correct.
So I think that there was a lot of interest during the committee meeting about what this potential could be.
Mm-hmm.
But if I may ask, now that we have some more intel, costs, et cetera, the timeline, I appreciate that it's not 12 weeks,
Right.
it's a faster turnaround. If we could, at Operations Committee on September 19th, actually have something from Chief Miller with regard to a middle ground, implementing, immediately, it could really be on his advice that the clear bags, for example, something that I kind of ad nauseum have followed up about is about the ticket booth, about creating just some more structure and order to events in general, and allowing that process to kind of play out to, I think once there's more diligence just with the process from what it was, I think that would be a good temperature check as to how it's received, how quickly people move through. We have the police officers on hand that will have them. We didn't have them last football season. We will have them uniformed this football season. There's some different dynamics that are happening that can be implemented for, quote unquote, free in the interim. And then really give this due diligence with regard to what we could put in place, and have a more in-depth committee conversation now that we have this additional intel. If that would be my ask.
Fair enough. As long as the board's okay with that, that's perfectly fine. We'll go back to Chief Miller, and then in September well, and if we have some additional information to share, like as far as the grant opportunity, if we get some more
Absolutely.
details, we'll be sure to wrap that together.
And that's, to me, it's about the due diligence of just best practice and what we can do with what we have. If this was, $2,500, I think it would be a different conversation. But I think it's a substantial investment, and obviously all of our safety is worthwhile. But I think that we have invested so much in initiatives with regards to safety, especially with our police force, that we have something more in place than we did a year ago.
Okay. Yep.
Does everybody feel okay about that? It going to committee? Fabulous. Thank you, Mr.
right.
Weaver. And
Thank
thank you, Mr. Fabrizio, for all of the work that you've done just to move all of the different capital projects along.
All right, moving on. Administration has proposed items 5.02 through 5.09 to be included on consent. Is there any discussion or questions on these items? Hearing none, we can move those to consent. Item 5.10 is a motion to approve the substitute custodial services agreement. Any questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, we can move to consent. 5.11, the approval of the copier agreement. Any questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, please move to consent. 5.12, approval of the 2024-25 district booster and support organizations. Any questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, we'll move that to consent. Item 5.13 is already on consent, the approval of the bus drivers and aides. 5.14, approval of the 24-25 special education contracts and costs and services. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, we can move to consent. Items 5.15 and 5.16, both are approval of confidential settlement and release agreements. Any questions or comments on these? Hearing none, we can move to consent. Item 5.17 is a motion to approve rate increases for custodial in-house security. If there are no questions or comments on this item, we can move to consent. Item 5.18 is a placeholder, and item 5.19 is the grants and donations report. Is there any questions or comments on the grants and donation report? Hearing none, that ends section 5.
Dr. Weston, thank you so much. Mr. Keenan, section 6, payment of bills.
Yes, we have section 6.01, motion to ratify and pay bills and payroll and authorize payments for period ending June 30th, 2024. If there are no questions, do we move this to consent? 6.02, we have an approval, motion to approve the treasurer's report and financial statements for the period ending June 30th, 2024. There's nothing on that. I'll move it to consent.
And then 6.03 and 6.04 are ratifications and approvals for August 12th.
Mr. Keenan, thank you
That
so
ends my
much.
section.
Thank you so much, Mr. Keenan. In lieu of Dr. Sadler, Dr. Campley, would you, or Mr. Fountain, would you like to take that?
No problem.
I'd love that. Perfect.
All right, I haven't read it yet, though, so now I gotta look at it.
Go cold with it. Yeah, right.
All right. 7.01 is already on consent, as is 7.02. 7.03, approval for professional appointments, and 7.04 for long-term substitutes. Any questions or comments on either 7.03 or 7.04?
Mr. Fountain, if I may, in talking with Ms. White as we reviewed the agenda before this evening's meeting, we wanted to move these from consent just to take a minute to recognize the individuals that we're welcoming to the district as new staff or LTSs in the upcoming year. And we've done this in the support staff category as well. So as not to necessarily just embed them with the consent items, but instead to call out and extend some thanks and appreciation that they have chosen our district, and we're looking forward to having them be a part of our teams. And there will be more to come.
When will you have the new kindergarten teacher ready?
We hope to have that person ready for Monday.
So they'll be on this.
We're hoping, that's the goal, yeah, yeah.
So, is there anything additional that you would want to add to 7.01 or 7.02?
Nothing.
Oh, 3 or 4? Okay.
Yeah, and nothing additional, just a welcoming message, and
Okay.
really just to thank individuals for choosing our district. And we will, as Mr. Keenan has prompted, we'll most likely have a few more for next week.
Then we will officially welcome them. So, 7.05, approval of administrative appointments. Any questions about that? We've discussed that one at length in the past. Okay. 7.06, 7.07, both on consent. 7.08, placeholder. 7.09, placeholder. 7.10, approval of revised administrative job description. Any questions or comments about that? We will move that to consent. 7.11, approval of revised professional job description again. Any questions on that one? 7.12, approval of salary adjustments. Any questions? And 7.13, approval for objective performance standards for superintendent. Any questions? So all of those will then be moved to consent, and that concludes that section.
Mr. Fountain, thank you for stepping in. Section 8, support personnel, Mr. Liggett.
Thank you. Are there any items on here that administration would like to not have on consent? You were indicated that you had a few.
Yeah, we'll recognize again, thank you, Mr. Liggett, item 8.03, and I've clicked ahead to that one, where we will again welcome individuals to new positions in this category. And just, again, we didn't want them to be embedded in the consent items, but instead just take a moment to recognize these individuals new to their positions or to the district.
All right,
and
very
thank them
good.
for
Then
that choice.
I won't do that. Then items 8.01 and 2 will be on consent. 8.04 as well. 05, 6, 7, and then item 8.08 is the approval of salary adjustments for non-union support staff. If there are no objections, I would ask for that to be moved to consent. That would end my section.
Mr. Liggett, thank you so much. Back to you, Mr. Fountain. Section 9, governance.
All right. Section 901 is a motion to hold a second reading on the following policies that you can see listed. Are any of those, any questions on any of those?
There should be an exception made if we could motion to remove policy 429 from the second read because of a PNN that was received on July 24th.
249, maybe?
I have 249. What did I say?
You said 429.
Oh,
About to say,
I'm
there's
just-
not one on
so-
there.
Yeah, my brain said that, but my paper said 249. Yeah, got it.
Alright.
So if we could have a motion to remove that, can I motion it?
Yeah.
Actually, we can just, because we're just putting it on next week's agenda, we can just direct that be removed.
Okay, perfect. And then it'll go back to committee, and then we'll incorporate the PNN.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr.
So
Severs.
after 249 is then deleted, the others then, any other questions on any of those? So they can be moved into consent. And that ends my section again.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fountain. And that brings us to Section 10. Section 10, comments from the audience. Unfortunately, no one is here to join us this evening. Comments from board members, section number 1002. Anybody have anything to add for the good of the group? Okay. I guess I will just add, good luck to all of our sports groups that have started, football, band. Hopefully they have a very good 2 weeks leading up to the first day of school. We'll see everybody next week. Section 1003, notice of video recording disclaimer. 10.04 is adjournment, and I will also add that we had executive session prior to this meeting to discuss personnel and legal. Correct? Yes, personnel and legal. Thank you so much. I adjourn.